roll. Maybe I just lost control. These nights keep on taking toll. Find me out here on my own.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a talk through of some of my favourite show jumping rounds I did with Sam. I hope you enjoy. The first round I wanted to talk you through was the 110 restricted rider final at Nationals 2016. This was my first big win on ponies, and yeah, it was a big moment for me. It was my first year in BS and I was really proud of this. So coming down to fence 2, the plan was to be a little bit deep to it so I could then turn back inside to fence 3, which we actually managed to do. At the time, this was quite a big course for me. I was very nervous because obviously it was a big championship, and turning back to these fences was quite daunting because they were a lot bigger than I was used to. I'd not really jumped many 110s, and this was a good 110 jump off. So everything was going really well, and when I walked the course I was going to turn back inside to that double, but I'd seen quite a few people do it and it not go to plan, so I thought that wasn't a good idea. And then I went round and went really well, and coming to the last fence I saw this ridiculous stride and I was absolutely a mile off the fence, and yeah, Sam, bless him, he was really good to me and he just picked up and jumped it, and I ended up winning my first rug, my first national title, so it was a big day for me. So the next round I just had to talk about was the day that I qualified for Hoys. If you see my previous YouTube video, you would have seen a short clip from this, but I felt I had to post the whole round. So just a little backstory of this round before we get into it. There were 4 in the jump off and only 3 qualified. I was last to go in the jump off and I knew I had to jump clear or have a really fast 4 faults. So obviously I wanted to jump clear, but I had to keep fast just in case I had a fence down. So I'd seen someone turn back inside from fence 1 to fence 2 and it hadn't quite gone to plan for them. So I thought I'd go round and keep it smooth and keep my lines tight, and I thought it'd work better. From fence 2 to 3, in the first round I'd actually gone 5 strides down the distance just because it walked a little bit longer, but I knew that I couldn't afford to go 5, I had to go 4. So I wanted to be nice and forward to the oxer and then land and just keep my leg on and keep travelling down and trust him to jump the upright, which he did. So from the upright all the way around to the double there was quite a long run, so I had to use that to my advantage because even though he didn't have the biggest stride, he was very fast away from a fence, so I knew I could just land and move, and he jumped through the double really well. And then I had to turn back tight to this plank, but at the same time it was quite a bogey fence, you couldn't come fast to it, so I had to make sure I kept him nice and balanced so he gave him time to jump. After the plank there was quite a long run round to the next fence, so I just had to keep moving all the way around the corner. And I saw a really nice shot to that, which I was really pleased with. And after that, I just had to land and just trust him to the last fence and just keep moving all the way. Yeah. So we did actually end up winning this class and qualifying for Hoys, which has to be one of my best days. So this next video I wanted to show you actually involves a video of the first fence, which I don't think I've ever posted on my Instagram before, but as you can see, I had a horrendous miss to the first fence and Sam was an absolute saint to keep going. And I think posting this video just shows that even if part of the round goes wrong, you can still recover from it. So, for example, in this, it was at Nationals in the 148 final, and the first fence went so badly I completely missed, and at the age of 13 that should have really rattled me, but instead I thought, oh my gosh, I need to get my act together. And after having that first fence down, we actually jumped clear around the course, and we were one of only 3 people that finished on the 4 faults. There wasn't a clear round in the class, and we qualified Olympia from this round. So it just shows that even if something goes wrong, you can still come back from it. At the time, this was by far the biggest course I'd ever jumped. I was walking it and I was panicking so much, thinking, oh my gosh, like, I've never seen a course this big before. You can see there how big that last fence is compared to him. I think it was about 145 to be honest. So obviously I was very nervous, but just going around the course I just trusted myself, and I knew that we were more than capable of jumping around it, and obviously Sam proved me right. He jumped absolutely unbelievable for me, and yeah, this just made me so happy to see that even after a mishap at the first fence, he trusted me enough to jump around the course.
And you know that's what happens sometimes. Jump's a lovely round.
This round is another round that's very important to me. If you would have seen my previous YouTube video, you'd see how I talk about having a confidence knock. and then not long later going to Southview Pony Premier and winning the JA class. So this is the video of me winning the JA class. So turning back to the first fence, I came off the opposite rein because I felt like I could get a much better line and keep close to the wing stand, which kept my line a lot shorter. And coming for fence 2, I opted to go one extra stride compared to other people because I just felt I needed to keep him careful coming off his uprights, because later on there was a double of planks that you can see just in front of him. Turning back to this next red and white upright, I just needed to keep as tight around the back of the other fence as I could and keep as close to the wing stand of this as I could, because as you can see I had to turn quite tight back inside after it. So I needed to give myself every chance to turn back inside. This next fence caught quite a few people out. A double of uprights late on in a jump off is not what you want to be seeing, but luckily I trusted Sam to jump it and he did everything he could to leave them up. Swinging back round to the last fence, I opted to go a little bit wider to make sure we could get straight, because as you can see it's a wide oxer and it was very square, so we didn't want to be coming at a tight angle to it. For me, one of the most important things to do when you finish a jump off round is to ride your finish. In this case, I think I won the class by about 100th of a second, so if I hadn't have ridden my finish as fast as I did, then I may not have won the class. This next round is another round that's very important to me. It was the Pony Grand Prix at my First Nations Cup show in Centaur Park. So it was my first time representing my country and it was a big Grand Prix. I think there were about 80 people in it. In the end, there were only 2 clear rounds inside the time. And as you will see how we went round. But yeah, we had such a good round around this. I was really proud. So those first 3 fences were quite straightforward. And now we had a long run down to a combination. You actually can't see the last part of it. But yeah, that was the combination there, which was quite difficult. I think I had an oxer in the middle and an upright coming out, which meant you had to jump strong enough in to jump the oxer, but then be careful to come out. And then as you can see, it was round the corners to that big plank, and then a long run down to the open water, and then a very forward 6 strides to that final upright in the line. So you had to trust your pony to jump it. You couldn't be adding strides because there wasn't enough room. So you just had to trust them to jump it and keep travelling. Unfortunately, as you probably saw on the scoreboard, we actually did have a very unlucky toe on the tape of the water. He jumped it really, really well. Unfortunately, just landed a little bit short and ended up catching the tape. I'm sure you can also see that the whole way around this course, I'm moving on, keeping a really strong canter. And you'll see after this oxer that I turn quite tight back to this next fence. I stay very tight to the plank and I only give myself really about 3 strides off the corner because the time allowed was so tight, you couldn't afford to hang around. To this final double, you had to give them enough room to jump the front railers. As you can see, it's a very square oxer. And then you jump through the double, and it was a reasonably short 6 to the last fence. And I saw a couple of people go 5 and land on the back rail because they didn't make enough distance. So I opted to go for the 6 and just hope that we were in the time allowed. I did everything I could around the rest of the course to stay inside the time allowed, which I actually did. And I believe I came 6th in this Grand Prix on 4 faults with about 80 starters. I think that just shows how difficult the course was. Now for the last round I talk you through, I thought it was only fitting that I used Olympia from 2019, which was actually my last round I did on Sam. And there's no other feeling than right here that you can see just cantering through the tunnel into the arena. There's nothing better, and the atmosphere just hits you and it's just incredible.
It's been a great year, as I said, all the Nations Cup circuit under the guidance of Claire Whitaker. This combination were part of the squad that went to Berlin. Of course, one of the winning rounds, Great Britain winning down in the Netherlands, also winning in Austria. Running the second to go then, it is with music answer, Emily Smith.
I thought I'd stop talking for a minute there and just kind of let you hear what the commentator said, and as I'm sure you can imagine, it was a very emotional moment for me. I knew it would probably be the last time I ever went in the ring on Sam, and yeah, for it to be at Olympia with a load of my friends there supporting me, family there, and when the commentator introduces you, you know, saying all your successes and stuff, it's such a surreal moment. So before I start my round, I just want to talk you through how I prepared to start my round at a show like this. So while the commentator is introducing you, that is your time to show your pony around the arena. As you can imagine, the crowd at Olympia is very on top of you. There's lots of things to spook at, so I always take the opportunity to trot in between the doubles because you don't want them jumping into a double and then spooking halfway through. You want them to know what's in there. Coming to the first fence, then I made sure I used lots of corner and got nice and straight for it, because the last thing you want to do is shock them to the first fence when they're not expecting it. So after fence 1, I went on the set stride down. Now around the corner to the third fence, it was quite by the gate, and it was on a funny angle, so you had to get out and get really straight, but at the same time you had to use plenty of legs so they didn't hang by the gate. Where the combination walked quite short, I opted to go 8 strides down to it instead of 7 strides, because I didn't want him jumping in too forward and possibly having the middle or the last part down. So I did go 8 up to the combi, and he jumped through there really well. Coming back to this red and white, I had to be careful that I didn't use too much of my corner, because if I gave myself too much room it would have taken too much time. So the time allowed is so tight at Olympia, and I actually did end up getting 1 time full, which was really unlucky because I was drawn second to go, so we had no idea how the course was riding. So coming back to this next fence, I think it was fence 7, you're in the exact same position as you were to fence 3. It was tight off the corner by the gate, so you had to ride it exactly the same but just on the opposite rein, and then you had to land and move and ride the right line down to that double. And after the double, because the crowd is so on top of you, it's very easy for the ponies to get distracted, so you have to try and keep their complete concentration so they're ready for the next fence, which was only 4 strides away. Turning back to fence 10, you had to give them enough room to jump it, but at the same time you couldn't go right out into the corner because you didn't have enough time. So I made sure I got nice and straight for him to jump it and gave him plenty of time, and then down to the last ox, so it really was a case of just land and keep travelling and hope that you pick up the stride that you look for. And yeah, I was absolutely thrilled with how we jumped in this round. I really couldn't have asked much more from him. We were so unlucky just to be a fraction of a second over the time and pick up 1 time fault, but we still did come 5th at Olympia, which honestly was a dream come true.
They say that I'm on the road, maybe I just lost. These nights keep on taking toll. Find me out here on my own.